As kids grow up, it's natural for us to feel like we kind of might be growing apart, especially when kids get to be teenagers. The reality is, we're just not spending as much time with kids in the same focused ways, and we're not looked at the same. And for some of us, as our kids grow up, there's other influences that really are zeroing in on knowing our kids, specifically things like artificial intelligence or marketing departments. It can feel like they know our kids better than we do, and we can feel like we're losing our grip. That can put some of us as parents in dark places. But today on the Celebrate Kids podcast, in this daily segment, Facing the Dark, Dr. Kathy's going to give us some important insights, especially as our kids grow older and mature in different ways. So let's turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
So, Dr. Kathy, some might say, no one knows my kids better than I do, especially when they're referring to things like artificial intelligence, right? It's natural for us as parents to say, artificial intelligence wasn't there, caring for my kid at 3 a.m., changing their diapers. And there's kind of been this natural turn to really saying, artificial intelligence or advertisers or different things like that knows our kids. And all that's really true. But a recent Focus on the Family article highlighted how artificial intelligence really does build an understanding of our kids, and we might not even realize it. They go on to kind of highlight how the average teen spends almost 5 hours a day on social media. That's according to a 2023 Gallup study. That's more time than teens will spend doing their homework or working at a part-time job, and it's far more time than most teens spend with their parents daily. Meanwhile, during those 5 hours a day, teens are telling social media what's going on in their lives, and the AI that's embedded in the social media knows pretty much everything about them, what they like and how they kind of view the world and what kind of interests them inside of their social media. But some are saying that AI also has kind of a focused limit. It has limits that parents and those caring for kids have over it. Things like a wealth of memories and lessons and love, right? And so, Dr. Kathy, I kind of want to open up this can of worms. What's important for us to know about kind of what it means to know our kids? Is information and time and kind of knowing our kids' favorite candy bars or different things like that kind of what it really means to know our kids? Or is it something else that our kids need us to know about knowing them, right? Like, is it just information? Is it just ideas? Or is it actually something that they kind of feel, that they feel like we know them? What does that look like for parents?
I just went to the zoo with a good friend, and she knows me well enough to be able to predict what my needs were. She knows about my bad foot and my bad back. So she was watching me, and she would point out the ramp that was for strollers and wheelchairs rather than the stairs, because I'm not supposed to take stairs any more than I absolutely have to. And I got to tell you, it was beautiful to be known. I could ask for assistance and I could make my needs be known, but I didn't have to. She was constantly ahead. Now, she had a great time on her own. I did not make the experience negative, but I got to tell you that I know I was known because my needs were predicted and cared for. I wonder if that's something that some moms and dads needed to hear. Can you predict what your children need? Can you predict how they may behave in a certain situation? If you can, praise God. That means that you know them and you can let them know, and they're going to know that you know them, and now they're going to feel safer with you. And let me remind everybody that here at the ministry, we teach about 5 different identities. We have a spiritual self, a physical self, an emotional self, a social self, and an intellectual self. And when you know something about your children in all 5 of those identities, they will feel especially known, loved, and appreciated by you.
I do agree with that. I do think that there's that eye-opening up of the different ways. That's something that AI can't really see, right? Artificial intelligence really does have a kind of a corner of our lives that it does really know. And we've really opened up those doors of our lives in sometimes really surprising ways. And at the same time, it's kind of natural for us as parents to feel like we're losing touch with our teens as they grow on, as they develop more in emotion and those different kind of things that you've mentioned. we don't necessarily see them as much. And so we might not feel like we know them as much. We might not feel as connected to them. What encouragement would you give to parents who feel like they're losing their teen and feel maybe like, their gaming devices or their social media apps know them better, and actually the kids prefer those things over their parents because they feel like, the social media, feed just naturally gets me. I feel like I don't have to work so hard for it. But there's also this reality for parents that we're called to know and love our kids. What encouragement would you give to parents who feel like they're losing touch with their teens?
Yeah, I appreciate this discussion. I want to say that if we have listeners in that boat, you're not alone. Many parents today and grandparents today feel like their teens don't need them or want them or love them. And that may be sadly true in some situations. In most cases, that's not true. Let me encourage you to say that teenagers today may not act like they care, but they care. Almost every teenager you'll talk to does care about what a mom thinks of them, what a dad thinks of them, but they're trying to be cool in a culture gone bad. And they're looking like they're apathetic, but you get them in the right space and place, and they'll show you through their actions. They may not show you with their words, but they may show you with actions that they actually care more than you thought. So I want to encourage you with that. Walk toward them. Walk toward them. Don't expect them to always come to you. So why do they listen to music so often? What music do they like? What is the latest show that they've binge watched, and how come? Why? How do they make them feel? Why do they read what they read? Why do they like what they like? We can have conversations and not be afraid of what we find out about them. Get them out of their rooms. I guess two more things I would say. And one is look at their devices and what are they doing on their devices, and get them out of their bedroom. Get them in the living room, get them in the kitchen, have them cook with you and clean with you. They're part of a family unit. Read together, do audiobooks together, play board games, play games together on a device, but don't let them play hours by themselves. Get them out of their bedrooms and look to see what they're doing with their devices.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. I think that's natural too in this kind of time frame of their development for kids to really wrestle with who they are, right? They're building it. And oftentimes I think the biggest thing for us as parents that we kind of wrestle with, and even for people that just work with kids, is how are kids building their identity? What are they actually doing? And so you kind of talked about those ideas of the practical things. How do we, kind of engage kids and get to know them again? Do we take them out of their rooms, do different things with them, get to know what they like, and Barb, far be it from just kind of being the cool dad that knows all the lyrics to the newest song that comes out, right? We also want to all kind of speak into and guide their identity so they don't necessarily just follow whatever that singer goes towards, right? Because now I'm the cool dad. My kids think that I'm totally approving of this thing that this person kind of propagates. And now we get into this place. So how can we really, as parents and people that work with kids, speak into the identity of kids to also kind of reconnect with them, but also guide them, knowing that we might not have the same amount of time or what have you with them? How do we speak into their identity to really reconnect with kids?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because I need to say, in light of what I said earlier, that when you walk toward them and you find out about the music they're listening to and the shows they're watching, I am not suggesting that you should automatically applaud and approve their choices. So you listen to a song and you listen with an ear to understand your children, but also to critique the lyrics. And if they're believers and they say that God matters to them, then when it's right, you talk to them about why would you listen to a song, especially often when it's slamming women or it's negative toward, excellence or whatever it might be. And maybe you go online and you print out the lyrics and you have a conversation with your kid when the timing is right. And I think that they'll respect that. Hopefully they will. And that's one of the ways that you can grow their identity. And the other thing I'll say, Wayne, and I've said this a lot, but I believe it. I think it's so encouraging to understand that children become who we tell them they are. Children become who we tell them they are. So be specific in your affirmation. Be careful of not always being negative. You have a right and responsibility to point out the things that concern you. Absolutely. But have you talked about their blessings, about the positive attitude, about the excellence character that you've noticed, about the improvement that you've noticed that they've gained in math or spelling or reading or science or whatever? Have you talked about the positives, and have you been specific? Rather than saying to a kid, that was really good, have you said, I'm so grateful that you're resilient and you didn't give up quickly. And I'm so glad that you're learning to be creative because your writing is so much more enjoyable. And I appreciate how careful you were around your little brother. You took care and walked slowly so he didn't get frustrated since he's just learning to walk. And I'm so proud of you for loving your brother well by being slow and careful and putting him first. They become who we tell them they are.
You know, as Dr. Kathy was talking, it reminded me of a passage that comes out of Jeremiah 29, and I'm going to begin reading at verse 10. For thus says the Lord, when 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will visit you, and I will fulfill to you my promise and bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come to me and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and I will restore your fortunes and gather you from all the nations and all the places where I have driven you, declares the Lord, and I will bring you back to the place from which I have sent you into exile. It's natural for us as believers to kind of look and say, God's got big plans for my kids and their plans to give our kids a future and a hope. But when we look at this passage in context, the challenge in this reality is that Israel's kind of in timeout right now. And they're going to go through a long period of being kind of corrected in the way that they looked at the world and engaged the world. But God in the middle of all this says that he's not going to leave them. And he wants them to have a perspective on their time in captivity. And it's a perspective that really, I think, is kind of interesting. He says that he wants them to know him. And he gives this kind of outlook that those who call upon his name and come and pray to him, that he will hear them and that Israel will find him when they seek him with all their heart. You know, as Dr. Kathy was talking about kind of knowing our kids, it kind of made me think of this passage. What does it really look like to know somebody with all our heart? And what does it look like to truly seek and find them? I think she laid out some really helpful tips for us as parents to engage knowing our kids. And I wonder if we pulled back a little bit and kind of looked at this topic, especially this issue of our kids kind of growing apart, and we really focused on the heart of the matter, which is kind of knowing their heart, and then telling them that we're kind of seeing this, or we're kind of understanding who they are in this way. I think maybe telling our kids too, kind of what we're hoping to do and what we're doing on purpose, that might help them have a bright light in some dark times that they're even facing. You know, I want to thank you for listening to the Celebrate Kids podcast in this daily segment, Facing the Dark. And on behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook, my name is Wayne Stender, and we're looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.